Hi, friends. It's Michael Oxman. This is Zipline Safety for Arborists. You came to the right place if you're looking for this one. I just want to thank all the volunteers and the staff that are putting on the Pacific Northwest Chapter ISA's annual training conference, which I have been coming to since 1985. And so you can see what I used to look like. These have been several interesting decades for me. But the theme of our conference is resiliency. And resiliency, uh, it's a four-letter word, a four-syllable word. That's like no good. Sustainability is a five-syllable word, and that is even worse because sustainability didn't actually make sense. Things are not sustainable. We don't have a perpetual motion machine. We don't have infinite power. So what is resiliency? With trees. Trees bend. There you go. There's resiliency. Trees react. Trees will grow the following year. They'll change their whole persona based on what next year's climate consists of, and they'll respond to whether they had enough water and enough pollination from insects and other types of things that are totally out of their control. But for arborists, resiliency really does involve this bending and the rope stretching. So dynamic rigging is where it's at for arborists. Arborists need to take into account how the tree moves. And if you are paying attention, you will respond to how the tree moves when it bends over with your weight when you get near the top. If you're climbing up and you get to a point where it's becoming weak, you'll know it. If you're trained properly, if you have the experience, if you have the tools, and if you're doing the right techniques. So uh, people can use this flexibility to create great rigging opportunities, and that will challenge your crew. It'll challenge your uh, design as you modify your operation from branch to branch during the tree pruning or removal. So what is uh, rigging for zip lines? And I'm just going to refer to my notes. Here we go. Rigging is to remove branches from the tree to control their fall into a safe area or a more convenient area. This is going to save you some work. The benefit of the zip line is to do less work by transporting brush and sometimes in recreational climbs, transporting people to their eventual destination, which is off to the side. So a shallow angle provides a slower descent with less impact when the thing does hit the ground. So we want to modify our design by having enough angle of descent so that gravity can do its work and help us. And the route of the zip line is not always ideal. So that's why our rigging has to be dynamic. Our rigging has to change from operation to operation. And zip lines offer a quick way to access the ground with this diagonal gravity powered exit line for the people or branches. Zip lines, however, have a downside. They create sideways pressure. You're side loading the tree on the tree stem, which can cause the wood uh, or the roots to break and cause a safety issue. So there is the purpose of this uh, presentation. We want you to we want you to create good rigging systems, change them in response to the conditions that you find, and uh, still have them be safe. So how strong is your tree? You don't know that unless you're trained, unless you have experience, unless you have technique, and unless you have good tools. All of those things come together. And in the ANSI Z133.1 safety standards, we're supposed to understand that before we ever even climb a tree. So that's going to be a big help to us if we use these standards that the ANSI committee has created for us. So we can predict the forces that we're about to exert on the tree and compensate for them if we have good inspection protocols. In other words, did we look at the tree before we even climbed up there? Did we look at the tree when we were trying to decide where to toss our throw line? Hopefully we did. And then when we do approach the limits of stability and possible fracture, uh, it's not just the tree that can be overloaded, but your equipment can be overloaded by catenary force. Catenary force is the angle that a chain would assume if it's held from two different points, and the logarithmic increase is very dangerous. It's seductive. A lot of times we don't realize that a very taut line has way more pressure on the side loading of the stem or the gear. Uh, uh, but if we're trained, we will recognize that. So one interesting thing about zip lines is that it's not what we would call conventional rigging. Complex rigging combines zip lines with other rope systems. And if we get confused, that'll present a safety concern. So what we've done is we've come up with a bunch of well-known videos to illustrate this. Um, and then the guying of the primary anchor point to the backside of the tree with an auxiliary line can stiffen your rig so you can have less safety issues. You can use a tail hold for the person on the ground so that their end of it on the reception end is secure. We're going to see one where we used a porter wrap on a tree behind the ground person. And then another technique that we can use is cutting slowly and releasing the branch gradually and allowing it to bend so that the ground person can take up slack as it comes loose. These ropes develop sag in them as soon as the branch starts to move, and that could make your zip line less efficient. So we want to slow up the loading to allow the groundie to take up slack to lessen the sag. And then we can exploit our tools. We can use the friction from carabiners running on the line to add drag. So those are some of the safety issues. I did want to go over the safety first. So we're about to go into a video showing a recreational climb with people riding down a rope. Now, the reason I'm showing that instead of cutting down a tree with heavy branches falling at first, which we'll get to later, is because this was it shows that it's fun, and I've talked long enough, so I'm just going to start in on my little video series, and so we're going to watch half a dozen different videos so you guys can see what's going on. So that's it. So here we go, friends. Recreational tree climbing.
This, my friends, is fun in trees. Love you, Mom.
Not bad.
This is just too cool.
All right, so there we go. That was Bill Yoke. He's the media person for the International Society of Arboriculture back when this video was filmed around 2006. And producing that video was Toby Sherrill. So he did an amazing job for the Tree Fund. That was the Tree Research Education Endowment Fund. And Toby won a auction bid for a gift certificate for climbing guide services at the Minneapolis ISA convention back in '06. And Toby invited a couple dozen of his friends. And the people that you saw there are the who's who in the climbing industry. And I'm a name dropper. So I don't know if you know Toby, but he's a big shot and he owns tree equipment supply companies. So the fact that, whoa, my sound just went off. Device disconnected. That that must have been what, my microphone? All right. Okay, so I paused it and then it shut off. All right, we're back after some technical challenges. And the Pacific Northwest Chapter ISA has always been a big supporter of the Tree Fund. The Tree Fund is an amazing organization that's given out $4.5 million, $4.5 million in research grants to college students and college professors that are doing tree research projects at the university level. So we really need the recreational climbs that the Tree Fund sponsors. And so that video was a freestanding video. It has its own music, and I didn't want to do a voiceover on it. But now we've got on the screen an actual work climb video with lowering branches on a zip line. And later in this video, you'll see as we get down into the logs, we use conventional lowering techniques with a butt tie. And let's see, I think I wrote something up about uh, you adding conventional rigging techniques in a complex system of both zip lines and butt tie, tip tie, mechanical advantage, and other advanced stuff. And for the arborists that are watching this, as you're in a tree and you want to go radical, you will be able to as you get experience and know what's going to work. So let's watch Craig Bachman. This video was directed by Robert Oxman, who is our techie today. He's our sound and video engineer that's producing this broadcast for the PNW ISA. So Craig is tree 133, He's an amazing climber and educator. He specializes in training arborists to climb safely. And it's just been so wonderful having Craig come on our jobs where my son and I can learn and absorb, and he can teach us to modify our techniques by showing us the best way to do stuff. And fancy gear. You're going to notice Craig has a fantastic little um, trolley rig that I'm going to pause during the trolley so you can see how it's set up. Here we go. Craig Bachman. Okay, there goes the airplane over Craig, and he's getting set up so he can route his climbing line and his lowering line. So this was a really rotten uh, black locust tree, and it was hanging over the roof. Um, the, one side of the tree that was on the house side was super heavy, and the rot was on the back side. So we took a huge branch off of the house side, giving a lot of clearance on the roof. And here you can see exactly how it's set up. So Craig's got his little Husky powered saw, and even though this is 5 years old, that was the earlier version of the Husky, not the T540i. Amazingly wonderful, efficient electric chainsaw. So I'm on the zip line and I'm providing the tension there, and our ground man is clearing the hot tub from the small twigs and stuff. So we had a good three-person ground crew, which for an amazing climber like Craig allowed us to keep up with him, and he accommodated our ground crew by waiting until we did clear the hot tub of the brush before he proceeded to the next cut. There's a lot of climbers that are as good as Craig, but they just don't have the consideration to wait. Craig is really flexible and accommodating. All right, so I'm pausing this right in here. Now you can see at the very far right, there is a porter wrap. And the porter wrap is tied to a tailhold tree. And that gives me extra control. It allows me to not have to use my strength, but I can use the redirect off the porter wrap behind me. And the branch right now is suspended right over the hot tub. And I am providing the tension to control the angle of the zip line. And it works great. Uh, what you can't see right now is the other ground man who is holding the control line. He is actually lowering this branch down the angled zip line to me. So he and I were in close communication with each other during the descent of the branch. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about the communication and the audio between the people on the ground and the person in the tree is extremely important. So is eye contact. So is hearing the saw. So is hearing the branches brush by. All of those clues to what is going on at the other end keep us safe. And we want to be safe. We want to make sure that we can hear. We don't have music playing on our boombox while we're doing these operations because we want to know what's happening. There are all kinds of ancillary noises like chippers and other things happening, but we can't allow those to interfere. And we have to reserve the communication as extremely high priority because our safety and the safety of the hot tub depend on it. In this particular case, there's also a rain gutter right there. You can see on the far left side. Um, we did not cause any damage on this. We flew these branches 25 feet sideways over the landscaping up against the house. So this was a very successful operation. Okay, so I got done talking about the port wrap behind me. Let's move on with Craig's rigging operation. There he goes. So we're going to do some repetition here. You can see over and over and over. Craig does the same thing each time. But he also has several rigged up at the same time so that he can proceed cutting stuff in short order. And efficiency is very important for that. Here he's doing a couple at a time. This is what's considered advanced technique.
You know,
His
we just had an interesting discussion about Red Bull, who just for the first time this year sponsored a tree climbing competition.
Okay, so there's Robert Oxman on that. We talked about Red Bull, and now we're getting into some wood. And um, Craig's electric chainsaw is pretty much maxed out right about now. He's cutting through some ram's horning on an old wound, and he knows that that could hang up and hit him, so he's being very careful. And then he puts away his chainsaw so that he can use two hands and control it, hanging on with one hand and lowering it with the other one. And we're into conventional. So we're done with zipline. That was it for the zipline. The zipline was great for the stuff that was out on the tips. And of course, the slow motion was put in there by Robert Oxman in our video studio. Thanks, Robert, because this video is made much more clear because you slowed that action down for us. So that's the rec climb version, recreational tree climbing version in the music video, and then now the work climb in this Craig Bachman video, thanks to Tree 133. So now we're going to switch over and we're going to go get radical on you. And I guess you people know that Michael Oxman has a YouTube channel, and all this stuff is on my YouTube channel and on Robert Oxman's YouTube channel. But if you want to look at any of these videos, there's about 600 of them there, going back about 15 years. More than that, 20 years. So guess what? You now know who you're dealing with. All right, so we got an 18-foot diameter coast redwood tree on Highway 101, which is Pacific Coast Highway, for all those from France and Germany who are watching this. This tree is 250 feet tall. We had to top every branch on this tree. We shortened all limbs by about a half. And the reason is because the tree has dieback, and branches were falling. And since the state highway is only about 20 feet away from the tree, the State Department of Transportation was bothering us. Notice the river right there. That is the Eel River, which is an amazing river. It dumps into the ocean at Eureka, California. And for those who haven't been to the Redwoods, go to the Redwoods. Climb a redwood tree. Yes, climb a redwood tree. Now this is filmed by John Traverso from another tree across the street, and we had 5 different trees where we had climbers observing this action. Pruning this tree took 25 climbers a week. we spent 5 days pruning this tree with 25 climbers. So this was called the Treehouse Project. This video was filmed by G.F. Boronic Publications. And that person with the chainsaw right there is your buddy, Mark Chisholm. Mark Chisholm came out and climbed for 4 of the days with us. And with his friend, Brian Noyes, whose nickname is Brain. And Brain is right behind Mark, and he is handling the lowering line. This is a combination lowering line with a control line so that the branch is lowered along the zip line. And in addition to Mark and his partner up in the tree, who is his ground crew, we also have another ground crew on the ground underneath. This pair of climbers is handling a completely separate zip line. And here is Dan Gibson from Redwoods to Rose's Tree Service in the Sacramento area. Dan was one of the climbers, and he graciously switched off as a ground person. So all of the climbers did groundwork on this job. For 5 days, you can imagine that we couldn't spend the entire time. So, and I was lucky enough to be able to do groundwork for Mark Chisholm, world champion tree climber. And when you hang around the good tree climbers and they give you the opportunity to do their groundwork for them, to handle their ropes, it's a big honor. Gerald Boronic has an amazing video series called The Working Climber. And you can get that anywhere. And if you really want to learn how to climb, Jerry's uh, videos show you things that you probably can't find anyplace else, like the scale. I mean, how many 18-foot diameter trees do you really get to work on? Well, people came from all over to be able to do this tree. And this was a volunteer project. So looking straight down, you can see the state highway, the cars driving by. We had a lot of good opportunity for repetition, and uh, uh, the the climbers again are the who's who. Yeah, there's some big wood that's coming down. This stuff was heavy. Um, just just an amazing process with a lot of breaks. Here's Robert Phillips. He was one of our main guys. He came a long way to help us with this tree, and he stayed with it to the end. So the lunches had to be delivered up in the tree. If you can imagine, to get lunch, you have to haul a rope up 200 feet. If your chainsaw runs out of gas, you have to lower it 200 feet, wait for them to fill it up, and then haul it back up 100 feet. Pretty amazing. Um, there is a gift shop inside the cavity at the base of this tree. It's called the world famous tree house. And there's several different methods of anchoring the reception end of this uh, zip line. There's three different zip lines there. You can see two of them. There's a third one that goes out towards the river on the back, which is the one where I got to work. And there's little cabins that are for rent down below. And Steel and New England Ropes both sponsored this event. We got a mile of rope from New England, and we got 3 Steel MS-200s. Now here's Mark Chisholm and Brian Noyes going up the tree, and they're getting set up to start another day of work in their tree. So here's Greg Liu, whose partner Jesse Bauckham. Jesse carried the insurance on this climb. There he is. Uh, so his company was a sponsor for this event. There's James Piercy, who has a tree service in Lake Tahoe, California. He was one of the guys. Um, and I paired up with Lance Wallace from Milwaukee. So we had a really good opportunity to share each other's lines. And when you have somebody watching your line, there's a possibility that if somebody makes a mistake, that line could get cut with a chainsaw and you could die. Or the line could get cut with a chainsaw and the power line that was underneath could get busted, or somebody on the ground could get hit. Here's Brian Noyes. He's got one eye on Mark Chisholm and another eye on the work. So Jerry had his camera up in this tree. He has a big camera, and this now watch right here. He's gonna almost have an accident right there. Boom! The rope jumped. The branch jumped, and it almost cut the rope. That would have been a big catastrophe. You can see State Highway 101 underneath. And there was a couple other interesting little incidents, and it makes it really fun, exciting, and challenging, and it uses all of our professional expertise, all of our experience going way back. All of the stuff that we learned has to be stored in our heads, and we pull it out at the last minute. Many of See now there, Greg is got branches swinging around right next to his head. So we were um, going slow. We were trying to go slow. We wanted to make sure that this tree could always be around. It's a wonderful landmark. You can see it for miles. There was rain. There's Ryan Walsh and Lenny Anderson from Bremerton, Washington. Here's a branch that was pretty decrepit, so we had to lace it together with a bunch of marls. And of course, you're probably wondering, how on earth did the upper portion of the tree that we pruned not get stuck or hung up? Well, the zip line is the way. We were able to pull these branches out to the side, away from the tree trunk, away from the limb structure. And the only way this tree could have been done was with zip lines. Here's some conventional rigging. So this one is off the zip line. It's actually irrelevant. There's the tie-ins up at the very top of the tree. This tree was 5 feet in diameter, about 50 feet from the top of the tree, a massive column of wood. And here's Dan Gibson, Redwoods to Roses Tree Service in Roseville, California. And out back is that shipping container that the ground crew was standing on top of. That was the one where the section that I happened to work on. So there you go. Uh, that is called the Treehouse Project. It's a video on my YouTube channel. And as the group encountered a snowstorm on the fourth day, we bagged it and we pulled all of our ropes. Uh, there's John Paul Sanborn. There's James Piercy. Here's Jesse Bauckham. There are so many climbers that were gracious enough to contribute to this. This was a hard job. This was an incredibly challenging job. You can see the amount of deadwood that we had to pull out of there. Part of the unconventional uh, rigging technique involved using a high line straight across horizontally to another tree. We would bundle up branches so that we could combine multiple cuts with fewer lowering operations. We use spider leg rigging to balance them. These rigs are sometimes called balancers. We had to allow the branches to spin so that they got away from the wire. Here's Andy Taylor working the ground with Stephen Barry, an arborist from Mount Shasta, California, who is now deceased. Here's the butt of a big branch swinging around by Jerry Baronic's camera. And of course, as it gets hung up and as it pops loose, it could easily hit somebody. So, wonderful learning experience. I was just soaking it up. The fact that I had Robert Phillips as my ground man was just wonderful. There's Charles Pomerley in team operations, along with Andy Taylor, and 30-foot long pieces of deadwood. This deadwood is exceptionally hard. It's cured. There was a lot of line handling. It's extremely taxing to be pulling those ropes up and down in a 250-foot tall tree. And it had to be done many, many times a day. There were 3 ziplines, 3 pairs of climbers up in the tree, and a dozen or more ground people at the time. So there I'm hauling. That was one of the best things that I could do for this group is I was a hoister. And it, there's no glory in hoisting rope, but somebody has to do it, and it is great fun. So being around these people, getting to know them, several of them I hadn't met. I already knew many of the people because I get to hang around in some cool circles. And I just want to talk about, the fact that Jerry Baronic did an amazing job convincing us that we wanted to work for free. So he fed us up in the tree. It was great. And even though everything didn't go super smoothly all the time, it went smoothly much of the time. And it was very gratifying. We didn't drop any of these branches. We didn't have any accidents. No cars were hit. So that's great for us. So here's the after shot. We lift one big branch up there, and it's still up there in the very top. And doing a rappel on a 250-foot tree is kind of a dangerous thing because you don't have 100% um, control. You don't have enough drag. So here's our group. Notice Charlie Potter's got his arm around the shoulder. There's John Sanborn next to him, Nick Araya. There's Franz Smith. There's Roger Barnett with his camera down at the bottom. Oh yeah, these guys are great. There's sitting down is Mark Chisholm, Robert Phillips, and here we go. All right, so we're off to the next one. Uh, let's look at this tree for a second. We're back to a rec climb. This is a recreational tree climbing at its finest. This is a 6-foot diameter oak tree in Forest Grove, Oregon. This one's in Oregon, outside of Portland. And this was a group that got together just to have a picnic in a park. There's 9 ropes hanging there in this giant oak tree. And we set up a 330-foot zip line to another bunch of trees, a clump of trees that we had them guide off on the far side of the park. You're going to love this. This is a very short um, YouTube video that has some slow-mo and directed by Robert Oxman. This one is not on my YouTube channel. This is on his YouTube channel, and it's called a Send It session. And the thing we were sending was the climbers. So everybody got to take their turn on the zip line. It was fantastic. And of course, I had the distinct honor of being the photographer. And so I'm a retired climber. I had my day. My day is over. But I get to hang around people and I love hosting climbs. So please come and climb on one of these events coming up. Like, for example, a ton of stuff. That will already have elapsed since by the time you see this video. So here we go. This is a 300-foot Send It session featuring Robert Oxman up in the tree. Oh, I wanted to pause it right there at his doing the hang loose sign. But here he goes. He's getting ready to jump off. Go for it, Robert. Okay, so hey, there's Gordon Grimes there, and he's getting ready to go up. So I just wanted to say a little bit about the gear. That rope was a 600-foot spool of rope that Toby Sherrill donated to the Tree Research Education Endowment Fund. And thanks, Toby, for supporting us going way back. That was great. This could not have been done with a short rope. I mean, how on earth are you going to have 330 feet of rope across the main span? The tree was guyed to the backside of the oak tree, and it was guyed at the receiving end to a clump of other trees. So we used the entire 600 feet of rope to be able to set up this rig. So without the support of the commercial and sponsors of the Tree Research Education Endowment Fund, we couldn't do some of this stuff. You actually can't climb redwood trees with a regular climbing line. The minimum length rope you can have on a redwood tree is about 400 feet. It means you need a 400-foot throw line. It means for your crossbows, you need 400 feet of fishing line. So all of these techniques that you're seeing today in these giant trees, like this 6-foot oak, for example, aren't what you find in the tree that Craig Bachman pruned earlier in our presentation here. So we have to be flexible. We have to modify. We have to scale up when it's time. But we don't know when it's time unless we tap into our experience. So get trained. Find out all of the stuff that you need to know and store it away. And when it's time, pull it back out. That's what we really need to do. We need to be flexible. We need to be professional. And so let's move on. That was a recreational climb. We got some more videos for you. And like uh, Jerry Bronick's book, The Fundamentals of General Tree Work, a 500-page book, which I recommend. A lot of those photos are in giant trees. I happen to be a climber from Los Angeles. When I was 30, I moved to Oregon and I started climbing giant trees. Got into the redwoods, went into the old growth forest in the Olympic rainforest. So I have been really lucky. And uh, seeing the big trees at the other end of the spectrum gives me the opportunity to find out what's possible. So let's move on. We're going to leave Forest Grove, Oregon now.
Toby made it, and the ground crew ties on a zip line.
All right.
The better part of the morning was spent getting the zip line set up, and there was a little more to it than what's depicted here. Michael Tain is going to be the first climber to ride the zipper.
All right. So this video is from '02. Remember I said this stuff is 20 years old? And this was filmed with the old camera, so it's low resolution. And it's in square format. It's not in widescreen. This is Michael Tain, House. Thanks for coming to this event. He came from Massachusetts, I think, for this. Now, he was a tree trimmer at the Seattle Parks Department when I started working there in '02. And he came back just to help with this one event. This uh, video is called Bogachil Spruce. The Bogachil River runs through the Olympic rainforest, and it has 10 feet of rainfall per year, 120 inches of rainfall per year. The reason I pause it right here is because you can see that this zip line is made out of 2 strands of rope. It's twice as strong. It has less than half the amount of sag that a single individual line has. It can carry twice the weight of a single zip line. So 2 strands of rope running parallel with a pulley on each, plus the climber hanging below that, makes for a more secure rig. Remember I said we need to scale up? Well, guess what? This is a 10-foot diameter Sitka spruce tree that is 250 feet tall. And so we match our quiver of tools to the project at hand. And in this case, where all of the dimensions are gigantic, we had 25 people climb this tree in a 4-day period. Excuse me. All right. I get excited when I talk about the Bogachil spruce tree because so many people, 25 people, have memories, and we all shared our ropes, our rigging, our hauling, our gear transport, our safety with each other, and we all put ourselves at risk, and we all watched out for each other's safety. We all had each other's backs, and we all monitored the rigging as it was being created and designed. When somebody else is watching you rig something, you're being careful. And when you have 3 world champion tree climbers on this event, Christine Engel, who was the very first female international tree climbing champion, Ken Palmer, a 3-time international tree climbing championship winner, and Rip Tompkins, who also won the ITCC. So all of these people are master riggers. Nobody attended this event that wasn't an advanced climber. None of the rigs were elementary. We did use a lot of conventional stuff, but we used a lot of unconventional rigging, like an elevator line, which you're going to see, where one person up in the tree rides through an endless loop, and another person on the ground is counterbalanced and is able to ascend that same rope. Uh, so this is a GF Boronic publication. Jerry has allowed me to put this video on my YouTube channel. So if you want, you can go back. We have excerpted. Sorry, Jerry, for cutting half of your stuff out of here, but I just have been asked to discuss zip lines today. So a lot of the other um, information is unfortunately hit the cutting room floor. But I should say that this event was my first climb that I hosted. I invited people and they showed up. Ken Palmer was nice enough for Arbor Master Training Incorporated to carry the insurance on this climb. The Tree Fund held the Forest Service permit to have us gather in the National Forest to film this event. And it was the week prior to the ISA International Conference that was held in Seattle. The theme was old growth and new technology. So right now we're going to listen to Jerry's narration. He's going to go through here and describe how the tree fund um, uh, beneficiary, which was actually Tony and Susie Trisselt. They received the gift certificate from the Tree Fund auction that was purchased at the auction by Ben Trisselt, Tony's brother, as a wedding present. So this is kind of like a delayed honeymoon for them. And they got to come and climb a 10-foot diameter tree as a wedding gift. And the Tree Fund does things like this that are totally off the wall. The Tree Fund has the best stuff, and when the Tree Fund started inviting people to come climb with them, I was lucky enough to be one of the participants, and actually Yelta Budding and I found this tree a year ahead of time when we came back from the Milwaukee ITCC in 2001. So this climb was planned for over a year. And then Dan Kraus was up there with his dad. It was just a wonderful um, uh, project. And we also had a news crew from CBS come out, and Sunday morning show did a 9-minute segment on this tree with a bunch of other people. So make sure you see all of our videos on the YouTube channel, Michael Oxman. So here we go. Here's Michael Tane and Jerry Boronic's video, Bogachiel Spruce.
It's rigged in a tree just below the elevator line, about 160 feet. While Michael begins his ride across, Nanook comes up on the elevator. He's going to be the conductor on the zipper this afternoon.
Wait.
And his first passenger is Susie Trisselt.
Wait a second. And that.
While Nanook prepares Susie for the ride, Christine Engel is coming up on a line. I think she's going to take a ride on the zip line too.
Oh,
She just spied a loose shard of deadwood and yelled out a warning.
stand clear! Sorry?
It looks like Susie is ready to go.
Wait a second, what do I have a choice?
Okay.
Okay?
Ready to go?
I'm ready! Oh my god.
While Nanook runs the belay, he encourages Susie.
And you don't have to hold yourself. We just try to release and relax. You see it's safe?
Relax, relax.
Yeah. Enjoy.
This is one of those rides you'll never forget. From this point, Susie is going to have to rappel 80 feet to reach the hiking trail.
More.
Who else is going?
Rolla, it's a little sin, you know.
Looks like me.
But it's okay. Watch your back.
Pull it, Newt. I got a line caught. Well, it's not caught anymore. This brings back memories of when I was a kid. We fashioned a zip line from the top of a fir tree in our backyard over to a stump at a neighbor's. But we didn't think of using a belay back then, and the first rider on our system became one with that stump. Believe me, a belay is very important.
Looks good.
There's the trail and the reception committee. I'm going to tell you, I've seen enough in the last 2 days to give me some good ideas for some giant redwoods where I live. Whew. Here comes Christine. As if the ride isn't enough by itself, she has to do it upside down. There's so much rope in this span, and it offers a real nice cushion during the rappel. This marks the end of our climb, and the crew starts pulling out the ropes. Thousands of feet of it. When the end of a long line drops, it can break the sound barrier when it straightens out. Just listen.
Crack the whip, baby.
Oh, hey, I'm going to use this little segment here to plug another video on the YouTube channel. This is a 12-foot diameter Douglas fir tree. It's known as the Oregon Caves Douglas fir. It used to be the champion tree. There was a windstorm or lightning strike and the top busted out. So now it's only 180 feet tall, but this is a great tree if you're hiking around southern Oregon, where I lived for about 15 years. So thanks to Jerry Baronic for putting together this a whole bunch of clips. And he's got Tom Dunlap here in the Reynolds Triple. Tom's an amazing climber and a dynamic personality. And there I get to stand up on top of the Jug Handle Creek redwood. All right, so now here's another redwood. Here's another red climb. Oh, this is a fun one. And this was shot with a decent camera in December of 2020. This is called Treepalooza. Treepalooza was a fantastic event, conceived and held at a private paintball park. And some of the people that put on Treepalooza are quite notable in our industry, including Chris Coates, Reggie Copes, Nick Markley, a whole bunch of people. And so what we have is a zip line that is made for kids, big kids. And here Robert Oxman, who produced this video, is heading on up, and he's going to do a little, I think this one was 330 feet also. So let's just see how they do zip lines in Florida. So we got Kyle Jacobs, who is the send-off conductor, and he's getting the climbers on the zip line all secured in. First thing he does when he gets up there is attaches an extra safety line right there. Now he can hook them up to the zip line and then disconnect the safety line that they used to get up in the tree. So Kyle was a wonderful volunteer. He's an amazing climber, and he just participated in the NAOM, North America Open Masters Tree Climbing Championships in Virginia in May of 2021 and in Wichita in July of 2021. And North American Open Masters Tree Climbing Competition is called NAOM, and that is organized by Chris Coates. There's another one that's going to be in October 15th and 16th, so which is happening right about now as you were watching this in the city of Gold Hill, Oregon, which is along the Rogue River. So that's going to be an amazing event that I'm really looking forward to. So Robert's all tied in. He's ready to step off, and here he goes. Now down at the far end is Todd Bergulia, who's helping the climbers, assisting them off the end. And in this particular case, we get to use a step ladder. And then some other kids did it. Oh, those kids were having fun. Big kids, little kids, kids of all ages, arborists and kids of arborists mainly. There was a nice little two-step braking system. And here's Drew and Todd, and they're helping everybody get down when they get all done. So thanks to the volunteers who put this on together. Okay, so I got this pause so that you can see the entire zipline rig. And off on the far right, you can see Kyle up there. He's got the next person that he's getting ready. So this was a twin line zip line. The zip line was anchored at the far left-hand side of the photo to protect against any issues of failure. You know, when you have two zip lines that are running parallel, you're putting twice the pressure on your anchor points. So we don't want to destabilize our anchor points with side loading. This particular zip line had quite a bit of tension on it. That's why we needed the guy line on the back side of the tail hold. And you can see that the start point at the right side is pretty high up, creating a challenge to get everybody to the start point. This had to be a ladder so that even non-climbers that didn't know how to use ascenders could still get up and enjoy it, including the kids. So it was a wonderful success. And I should mention that Treepalooza had a competition associated with it that was highlighted by the aerial rescue competition, which was an enhanced competition of 6-member teams. There were 5 of these teams, and their job was to rescue these 5 crash test dummies who were the simulated subjects of a rescue operation who'd been involved in a airplane crash. And there was 3 different airplane fuselage sections that were scattered around, and we hoisted one of them up in a tree and had a couple of dummies inside there, and these teams were judged on how effectively they rescued the dummies. So make sure that you see the video on the YouTube channel called Treepalooza 4, which is actually 13 minutes, 13-minute documentary film directed by Robert Oxman. Okay, so that's just a little bit of fun. I'm so glad I flew to Florida in the middle of a pandemic. It was great. It was very surprising because it was the first event that I'd been involved with Chris Coates. So here we go. I'm going to pause this here and just tell you that this was 2006. It was the lightning struck ponderosa pine. This was a pair of ponderosa pine trees located in Mount Shasta, California. The tree that got struck by lightning died, and 6 months later they decided to get rid of it. So that's what we did. Um, the day before I got there, they got most of the green cut off of the live tree. And the next day is when I started going up in the bucket. So here we go, the Mount Shasta lightning struck ponderosa pine on YouTube. So we're going to continue on into our um, question and answer session for about 4 more minutes. I got to stop it right here. Here's the zip line. Okay, guess what? I'm giving a talk on zipline, so I'm going to pause it. There's not very much zipline in here, but there's a lot of big wood cutting, which is for you arborists. You're going to just love watching me dismantle this 175-foot dead pine tree. Stephen Barry had this job in Mount Shasta, and you can see him kind of cowering behind there as I send this branch unbraked, no control line, down the zip line, right past him. And in a minute, you'll see he is going to cut that log that he's standing on and watch it fall, looking from my view from the camera they gave me straight down. So there's a little zip line thing. So this is relevant, but a lot of it is just fluffy big wood cutting. I was amazed I got that shot. So there's Stephen Barry, died of pancreas cancer about 4 years ago. So the first day we were whittling away. There was a lot of whittling to do. And you'll notice on the right, I ran out of roam right there. That 200-foot rope was maxed out. And I wasn't even up in the top of the tree yet. And you can see that they built the house around this tree. On the left side, they put up a shed, and the shed roof was crushed by snow. This was a rental. So the tenants didn't realize they needed to shovel snow off of the roof. And had a great, fantastic ground crew. And so I started finishing off Stephen's first little tree stem using the 046. The 046 was cut and crooked, and you'll see some indications of that. I had one face cut that I couldn't match up, and I had to make another face cut right next to it. It's always great to use a sharp saw. And on this tree, it was miserable because the saw's chains were wore out. Okay, so now we got some zipline action. There's Mount Shasta in the background. This tree towers over everything in the neighborhood. And I had multiple slings tied up to my zipline right here. The angle going downwards was acute. These branches were barreling down that line towards the ground crew, and they had to stay on the ball and get out of the way right on time. Here we're zipping the top. How many people have zipped the top off a 175-foot tree? I just loved being given the honor of being the person to dismantle this tree. I drove 500 miles to do this tree, and I had a lot of experience. I was in demand. I was the contract climber. Here's the second face cut because the first cut wouldn't match up. I love cutting big wood. When those things hit the ground, the whole tree shook. There was roots underneath the ground that the logs bounced off of. And this shot was taken from the bucket truck. So I'm about 55 feet off the ground right here. And when you have half a dozen groundmen on the ground underneath you, servicing you, getting you water, filling up your saw, straightening around your rope, it's a humbling experience because they are dedicated to being members of your team. And I just felt really good that these people needed to have this tree done. And it freaked Stephen out. He didn't want to do it. You could see how that tree is growing right up through the roof. And I was confident. I wasn't scared. I didn't look at it for very long. I went up there the next morning after I arrived. So we're taking stuff off. We had plenty of room, a generous drop zone. Here is the very last cut where I'm going to end up with you folks today. Thank you so much for inviting me here. A lot of times when those faces close up and there's not very much weight, they don't bust loose. And this tree needed a little convincing. And you'll see the text at the bottom of the screen as my parting shot. This tree needed a little convincing. So thanks a lot to the Pacific Northwest Chapter ISA and the Board of Directors.